They have potential issues with bleeding and so all sorts of things that it kind of messes with the UI quite a bit. So we want to make sure
Really?
that this stays there. And that's good and it works well.
Nice.
Let's look at tier 2 feats. We have one change here, which is
Uh
Juggernaut.
oh.
So Juggernaut is
Jug is
Yeah.
I
so
remember
good. Jug
reading
is
on some
crazy.
discords and a lot of stuff that
I mean,
Juggernaut still exists. So
It has
doesn't
so many
matter.
properties, man,
So
and it's a
we're
tier
nerfing
2.
Juggernaut.
it's true.
So two things,
So
right?
much.
The damage reduction is now 20% instead of 50, and we increase the cooldown to 120 seconds, up from 90. The big thing here is that like Juggernaut, basically, usually we would just pop it. We wanted to keep the armor on it, by the way. Right? When you
Yeah.
pop
I just
Juggernaut,
find
you get
that
like
Juggernaut's
full
not really
armor
like.
the whole time when you're attacking.
At least it was
So
never on
very,
my
very hard to
list
punish.
of
But the big thing here is by lowering the damage reduction,
like,
you
oh
take
man,
a
this
lot
needs to
less
get
favorable
nerfed kind of
phase, right?
thing.
It's still 20%. You're still generally favorable, but less favorable than 50%. If I'm gonna throw a heavy at you, you're not gonna take 12, right? You're gonna take much more. So that makes a big difference there, and also making the cooldown a bit longer. Make sure that you have to think a bit more when you're gonna pop it. So that makes the thing. One thing here that
That
looks like
Pokemon
it's probably
video you
missing,
showed
because I know
me
a lot
ended
of
up
people
on
in
my
chat are probably
fucking
going,
YouTube
what
fucking
about
homepage.
what about shooting stars, right?
Fuck.
And I just want to bring up shooting stars very, very, very quickly because we're aware that the feat has an issue with hitting the same target multiple times. It is not the easiest thing to land, and we debated a lot internally as to do we take shooting stars, nerf it to the ground, and make it do 5 damage, and feel extremely bad in most situations, like 95% of situations, to account for the edge case that occurs once in a while where it's gonna hit multiple times for the same person. And we decided to keep it as is for now because we're looking at reworking the feat entirely so that
Oh,
the
nice.
issue just
Okay.
cannot happen anymore. But that's not coming right now. So I wanted to make sure I address it. We're not ignoring
I mean,
it. We
60
know it's a
damage,
problem.
dude,
We are
is
going to
insane.
fix it.
Like,
We're going to change it. But for now, we made the
Think it hit.
decision not to
It's
kill
only like
just
you
because
said.
Some
it's,
instances,
it's
yeah.
because of the
And
shotgun
it's like,
effect
you throw
Uh-huh.
it,
when they're in your
and most
face.
of the times
But
you don't even see your opponent's health bar, right? And so even as a tier 2, that felt really, really, really bad.
there we go.
So we wanted to make sure that it was still, usable when you're playing matchmaking. We know the feat is banned in competitive anyway, so it wouldn't have much of an impact there. It might have gotten unbanned, but then it wouldn't have felt good anyway. So that's kind of the idea here.
Okay.
For shooting stars. Next, tier 3 feats. I know some people are going to be happy. I'm sure Ken is going nuts for the last one. But we'll go over it.
Dude, this is
So
crazy.
first, Afira again, Speeding Comet or Unique Tier 3.
Yeah.
This is
so
awesome.
we've lowered the damage by 10. So you used to deal 30, now it deals 20. And the cooldown is now also 120 seconds, up from 90. Speeding Comet is very, very strong. It guarantees a heavy afterwards, guarantees a wall spot if there's a wall nearby. You have a lot of damage output, a lot of ganking potential. You have full block while you're running. It's an extremely good feat, right? So we're taking a first step here by lowering its damage by 10. If it needs to be nerfed further, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see if we can nerf it more. Same for the cooldown, right? It went from 90 seconds to 120. You won't be able to use it as often. Normally, when you get your tier 3 feat, if it's a 2-minute cooldown, you can expect to use it maybe twice, like maybe 3 times in a game, right? Like generally. So it won't be as prevalent as it was, hopefully. And then the total effect of it is also a bit lower, right? Lowering it by 10 damage, it makes a difference. It's not a huge difference, but it's enough that it impacts the feat quite a bit.
Yeah.
Next, we have Pugio. So Pugio was doing a bit too much damage on top of everything else it does. Guarantees a fully charged heavy, guarantees a bunch of different things. So with this, lowering it to 15 instead of 25, again, 10 less damage, makes the feat, it feels less bad when you get hit by it, right? And then you don't get like, slave and, like, not slave, but like you get eliminated and pushed down to death, like really, really easily. So we have to really change that. We have Fury as well. Fury is the infamous Fury Flask combo or Fury whatever combo. Very, very strong. So we decided to nerf both aspects of Fury. So the damage buff is now 20 and the damage reduction buff is 20 as well. So the combination of Fury and Fire Flask is gonna deal less damage.
The uni
And
special,
then the damage
dude.
reduction you get from
I
Fury
don't
as
know if
well
we'll be
is
able to
gonna
get
a little
it.
lower. So it's a bit more in
We'll
line
still
with
try.
other buffs that we have that do like multiple effects. It's still strong, but you're not gonna. It's gonna be hard to one-shot people when you have Fury active. Yep, that's good.
Cool.
Invigorate, Shaolin's unique tier 3 feat. So again, Invigorate kind of is in a weird spot where Shaolin for a long time was not like the best hero. We've buffed Shaolin, is now much more playable, which is amazing. But at the same time, Invigorate was a bit of a problem, right? It heals for 8 and cleanses everybody whenever you throw an attack in key stance. No matter if it's blocked, if it's parried, If it hits, if it misses, you are always healing.
I'm a little butthurt about the invigorate
and so
nerf,
before it
but
wasn't as much
I understand
because
why.
it was a lot more
Yeah.
difficult
I mean,
to get into key stance.
is
to
8
stay into
health
key
really
stance.
that much?
But with the
I
4
argue
changes
no.
we've been doing to Sheldon, like in the past
But
year,
I
or
also
so,
do understand
the
with
hero
the
is
cleansing
much
property.
stronger.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
because of this, you go into key stance a lot more often, and then that healing at 8 is a bit too strong, right? Compared to Varangian, that heals for 5 now, and every superior block, and those happen super often. At 4 here, this happens all the time.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to
It's
like really
still
lower
gonna be
the
good though.
efficiency
And
by
then the
half.
cleansing property
So it still
is also
cleanses.
pretty good.
You can still get a lot
Yeah.
of healing off of it, just not as much.
I'm looking at Oathbreaker though.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking
Finally,
at.
Oathbreaker. So
Yeah, I'm curious what they mean.
Oathbreaker is fun breaker, basically a lot of the time, right? And we understand that it's a lot of, but it's a lot of what we've been saying, right? So the original intent for Oathbreaker was to effectively counter revenge shields, right? That was the main issue and the main design goal for Oathbreaker. But when we initially designed it, Noel was one of our like amazing designers who was working on Black Prayer at the time. We tried it to just remove strip shields, and it didn't feel that good because you're like, oh, you have to time it a lot, and then somebody pops revenge and whatever. So we decided to go. You can pop it a little bit earlier to prevent shields from applying. Turns out, long term, it's better if you just strip shields.
Yeah.
It took a while. We decided we were talking about it for quite a while. How are we gonna adjust this? And there was like really 2 ways of going about it, right? Either we strip shields or we prevent shields from being applied. And we decided to keep the shield stripping overall. So now
So it doesn't really change Oathbreaker all that much.
No longer
No, but
prevent target from gaining shields.
Gotcha.
So
sometimes
again,
they would,
before,
Yeah, they
Re-oath
preemptively
the way it
pop
works
it.
is,
Yeah.
I see you.
and you wouldn't,
I see you got your revenge.
you
haven't
wouldn't get
popped it
shield,
yet. I'm gonna do Oathbreaker on you, and
and it would work.
You can still pop revenge,
Right.
but you're not gonna get your shields at all. It removes a lot of the decision and a lot of the timing with the feat when you
I'll
prevent
take that.
the shield activation from happening.
I mean, I'll take it over
instead, what
nothing.
it does now is
Yeah.
I have to wait until you pop revenge for me to pop it. You can bait revenge activation. There's a lot of stuff you can do as a player to kind of counter. There's a bit more counterplay to Oathbreaker than it was before. That should make a big difference there. And also, right now we have a known issue that we're still looking into, like if we're gonna keep it as is, which is that normally when we do our feats, we check for
Umbral Shelter now counters Oathbreaker instead of the other way around.
In this case, you can still trigger the feat if the person you're locked onto does not have shields. So meaning you can waste the feat. We're gonna look into: do we keep it this way? Do we put back the condition? But we wanted to change Oathbreaker at this moment specifically because it's been overperforming. A lot of complaints about it.
Hold on, I think you're a little ahead of me.
So this is kind of like we're addressing it and going that way. We're gonna
So I
keep
gotta
an
watch
eye
it
on
on
as well,
Twitch.
and see if we need to do
YouTube.
more to it as we go along.
Makes sense.
Finally, tier 4 feats. Fire Flask. So Fire Flask is a Viking unique feat that deals. So the way Fire Flask works is that
Dude, Spear
it's kind of like
Storm.
catapult, right? There's a middle,
Yeah, that's
and then there's like
big.
kind of expansion.
Oh my
And
goodness.
the damage from the middle started at 50 and it expanded all the way, I think, to 20. So we've lowered the maximum damage to 30, and it expands to the same value, which I think is 20, but it might be 10. I'm sorry, I can forget things sometimes. I'm getting old.
Oh, come on.
That's how it works. But basically, is because of this, first of all, the initial impact of Fire Flask is going to deal less damage almost regardless, because the curve still stays the same. So if it was at 50 and it drops off to 20, then the closer you are to the middle, the more damage you would take. You would take like closer to 50. Now
No
you're
more
gonna take
one
closer
shot,
to
right, from
30,
Spear Storm?
which is much lower. It's like 20 less.
I
So the
think
initial
if you're in the
impact plus
center,
the
it might
nerf,
still
right,
kill.
the
Uh-huh.
nerf to Fury
But
means that Fury Flask
aside from
should
that,
give
no, it
players
shouldn't.
more time to be able to run out of the fire, go heal, go cleanse,
Yeah.
and lower the efficiency of that specific feat
It's an
combo.
overall, it's
But
a
even
quality
if
of
we weren't
life.
going to nerf
Really,
Fury,
what they're doing.
Fire Flask still
I-
needed to be nerfed.
I wanted like a banner
That's
buff.
kind of where we're going to it.
Really.
Spearstorm, right? So Highlander had Spearstorm. It wasn't that much of an issue before because Highlander was not necessarily very competitive. With the recent rework, there's been a big uptick with Highlander. There's still some issues that we're looking to fix in terms of like input comfort and all that sort of stuff. But overall, the hero was much stronger. And so we had to nerf Spearstorm, right? Spearstorm, when it was dealing 70 per wave, could
Yeah, that's
effectively one-shot
crazy.
pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm
If you
surprised
get
they
hit by the
didn't
first
nerf
one,
any
the
of
other
the
two are more or less
ranged
guaranteed.
feats
And
aside
you
from
would take
Fujio.
like 70
I
plus
know,
70 plus
like
70,
bow.
you'd be dead. No matter if you
Yeah,
had
bow,
Trident,
or
spear.
whatever.
Trident.
So we're
50
lowering it to
damage.
30.
Yeah,
it's a massive,
that's
massive
wild. I
decrease,
didn't.
but the total max damage you can deal with this.
Like, I'm looking
is
at
going
these
to be
huge
90
damage
more
nerfs, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well,
But
you know,
outside of this, like this is a big
Yeah,
change
maybe-
for Highlander.
when a
This
javelin
needed to
does more
happen
than
because that
Spear
feat was
Storm.
just you're dead.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's nothing you
So
can
does
really do about it.
bow
On
and-
top
and
of
Triton. That's
it being
crazy.
hard to hear from external, it comes in pretty quickly. It's like it's because you can. There's other heroes that have feats that do almost instant kills or whatever.
Yeah.
But the difference is that they're usually a lot more reactable. We wanna have like those feats that if you're gonna be able to deal a massive amount of damage, if the reward is gonna be huge, you need to be able to really time them properly. With this, it was a lot easier to just throw it and nobody saw you and you're dead, right?
Yeah.
So that's the big idea here. Nerfing Spear Storm, so that goes. And finally, we have Fear itself. That decreases the defense of opponents by 40%, down from 50. So it's a smaller nerf on Fear itself, but Fear itself combined with a bunch of other feats ends up being like a little bit too strong. I don't know if you remember the unholy days of Peacekeeper having sharpened blades and Fear itself and just going, hey, I'm going to bleed you for your entire life in one shot.
I mean,
That was fun.
they were
but
fun for a while.
Yeah, for a little while,
For a
right?
little while.
When
Yeah.
PK was like top tier. So by lowering that a little bit, it lowers the effectiveness of that feat. Not by a massive amount. We're going to keep an eye on it again to see where that goes.
Cool.
So that's it for feats.
That's
So
a lot.
essentially, yeah. So this was supposed to go in a testing grounds.
Yeah.
And I think we can all agree that we can push all of these live. We don't need to do a testing round for this.
Yeah.
We're good
There
to
you
go.
go.
So
Alright,
enjoy
okay,
that. We got
Yeah,
more.
right?
More.
Hero changes, right? So Berserker. Berserker's been overperforming. Very, very strong hero. We know that there's a lot of like weird issues with it. And so what we're doing with Berserker is first we're lowering his HP down to 125 from 130. Reason being that like with the new dodge cancel, all that stuff that Berserker has now, there's there's less need for trading with the hero. It's still part of his identity. You still have armor and a couple of things. So that's why the HP is like
Dude, spin
125
chop. That's
instead
his
of
dash
120, for
light, right?
example. But
Yeah.
you need to trade less, and so we're comfortable with lowering his
Oh,
health
man.
a little bit to make sure that works. The second change, though, is much more important.
Also
It's a
applies to
test that we're
external
doing
targets.
Yeah,
on
no more.
Berserker.
And
If
I
it
do
ends
that
up
all the
working,
time.
We're gonna look at it, but we're aware there's an issue with dodge attacks and two dodge cancels, right? I've been seeing a lot of players like talking about like they're problematic. Part of the issue is that because they're enhanced, you can never really stop them. So if I'm
I said
playing
in the
Berserker,
chat, I said,
I can use them offensively.
yeah, surprised they didn't nerf
do
any
a
of the
side
bow
dodge,
feats.
target swap.
And someone
do
said,
do,
that's
do
'cause
the
they're always
attack, and I'm
dodging
gonna be
them.
doing
And I'm
I'm
like,
using my trajectory.
Oh
not
my
the
God.
way I
to
use it.
boxes, hit
That's
people
funny.
that can't parry me, that can only block me, and so you can use it really offensively, which is not the actual purpose that we want to give for these attacks, right? So what we did is it's no longer enhanced, including
just
on external targets. So what that means
Killed
is if I'm locked onto
Berserker's
Max,
external.
right? And then I side dodge,
Pressure. Yeah, I mean,
switch target to you,
Yeah.
and do the attack.
Here's the
If
real question,
Max
though. Are they going to do the
blocks,
same to
Spin
Orochi?
chop, I'm going to bounce off of him.
I know he's
and
can
it's
do the
not
same
even gonna reach
thing,
you.
and I do
So
that
the
a
idea
lot too.
here is we want to make sure that if somebody blocks it, if somebody is able to stop it in any way, it will stop the attack entirely. Like I said, it's a test we're doing. If it's effective, it's going to work. If it doesn't work, if it ends up being like too frustrating or whatever, it doesn't end up doing what we'd like it to do, we'll look at it again and see how we can change things. But that is one of the big things that we want to look at here is to try to figure out a way to not remove the dodge cancel at the end. We like the dodge cancel part. It's interesting and also feels like a lot more cohesive, right? If you say
kind
this
of
hero can dodge
don't
cancel every
agree
attack,
with the
having
Shinobi nerf.
exceptions, while it might seem
Just
like
'cause you're
it's an
70,
exception, it's okay.
doesn't
It
mean
just
anything.
it adds a
But
burden
then over
of
time, as
knowledge
people- I mean, don't get me
at-
wrong.
at the higher levels. We've noticed that like they're very, very used in gank situations to guarantee a ton of damage,
Right.
like later in ganks and stuff. So with this, we tried that we decided to like still leave it high, right? 30 is still kind of like we're trying to hit that as our like damage cap ish. There's still some stuff that goes above, but we're trying not to go too much above it. So at 30, it still deals a significant amount of damage, but still not 34. It might seem like it's only 4, but when you factor in damage reduction from a bunch of different things, it hits it quite a bit more.
Gotcha.
So it makes a bit of a difference here. Should be a bit less effective when you're trying to gank with the Hito on the other side.
Nice.
Next up, we have Ephira. So Ephira has a bug fix, but it's also like a balancing fix. So normally, just to give a bit of context here, when you have heroes that can dodge, well, every hero can dodge, right? But when you dodge with a hero, right, we have a little something we set in the data that says you bump minions that are around you to make sure you can actually dodge when you're in minions and make them move.
I guess I'd never really seen that.
So there was a bit of a bug that slipped by with a.
Oh, you have.
That also let her.
Maybe I'm just not
think it, but you have
players as well. And this causes,
you know, sometimes when you're team fighting her and you're to the side and she does a cartwheel into you and it still stuns you, like it bounces you away.
Yeah. Okay.
Bump them and then guarantee more damage afterwards, which is not what we want to do at all. So we decided to. So we removed it. This was actually one of the bugs we got in the bug reporter.
Nice.
Right? That I get like almost every day. I get somebody from, I get Sam from.
Thank God.
Who messages me, goes, look, we have like this, that issue. Like, you know, how are we going to look at them and all that stuff? Because, you know, they don't, it's not always obvious for everybody. Not everybody's in the fight team and understands that the data is super deep. So they contact me on almost daily basis and then we talk about them. This is one of the issues that was put in the bug reporter. One thing to note, right, is that the bug reporter is for bugs. It's not for feedback. If you want to give feedback, there's a million other channels to give feedback, right? I'm on Reddit all the time. I love seeing the threads on Reddit about like a bunch of different things. So that's cool. But if you want to give feedback, you can go on Reddit, you can go on Twitter, you can go on official forums, whatever. If you want to give out bugs, bug reporter, #1 place, right? It's amazing.
Good.
Yeah. So, okay, let's keep going. Centurion. So Lion's Roar, which is like the light follow-up after a guard break. It no longer requires strict timing. We've been removing those as time goes, so you can just like mash it. It's going to come out. A little bit of a quality of life, but still makes a bit of a difference. Then Peacekeeper, we've increased the forward range of your side dodge attacks to be more in line with other attacks that have that. So it's not a massive increase, but it's enough that, like, normally when you do a side dodge into a heavy with Peacekeeper, like, she barely had any reach forward. So players could be like a little bit too far away and would miss a lot. So this should be a bit more consistent now as to when you're going to be using it. So that's going to be interesting. We're also looking at other buffs for Peacekeeper after what we've done to see, like, to improve her flow a little bit. So this is going to be maybe coming in the future. I don't have a date. But just to make people, just to reassure people, we are looking at Peacekeeper. It's one of the things we have in mind. So keep your eyes peeled. We're going to get good stuff coming. Finally, we have Nusha. So there's two things with Nusha. One of them is more of an input comfort thing, but the other one is something that we're going to be talking about on the next slide as well, is our heavy finishers no longer apply uninterruptible stance on the victim. So basically, if I landed a heavy finisher on you, and then you kind of, it grabs you, it pins you, throws you against somewhere, during the entire duration, you had armor.
Right.
And so because of this, you could take a bunch of hits, and it doesn't go into further damage reduction. It doesn't go into these things because you're not going into a hit reaction. You're just tanking the hits. And so it was a little bit problematic. It wasn't really necessarily needed, so we removed it. And then you will see as we go along, there's a bit more changes that go into that as well.
Oh, that's
good. Uninterruptible stance on guard breakthrough victims. So a bit of history here. About half the cast did it, and the other half of the cast did not.
Right.
And so we've decided to standardize it because it made no sense. It was a weird inconsistency that was based from a long time ago where we tended to put armor on a lot of attacks when if you got hit out of them, the realization of things, right? How the visual outcome of it didn't look super good. So we a lot of the time we would put armor on these to make sure it
now I'm trying to remember which heroes have this.
Our stance on this has changed.
I'm not sure.
Because we realized as we evolved playing the game ourselves and watching players play the game and as we like working on it, it's not really necessary, and we rather take the hit and realization to have better gameplay. Because this, what ends up happening is that sometimes, if I had a hero, I would throw you, my allies could wail on you, and nothing would happen. You would just take full damage.
Right.
Some other hero, I would do the same. You would take a hit, you go into a hit reaction. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
We're not going to list because it's like half the cast. It's like, you know, we're going to be here until Sunday, so whatever.
Sure.
But really, like, the important thing here is we've standardized this so that if you throw somebody and they get hit before they hit a wall, before anything happens, they're going to go into hit reaction 100% of the time to make sure that these are no longer like weird ganking tools that are kind of like really character specific, but just to make sure, like, this is super clear, it was not intentional.